Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Oman Pharmaceutical Society webinar, which is this time collaborated with the Directorate General of Medical Supply, and this is the 7th webinar of the Society. Before we introduce our speaker today, I would like to make an announcement that all the questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. So going to our speaker today is pharmacist Hamad Mahrizi, who is currently working as an assistant director of the drugstore at the Directorate General of Medical Supplies. Hamad obtained his master's degree in supply chain management from Strathclyde University from Scotland, the United Kingdom. Hamad is very passionate about supply chain management, lean management, and information technology, and he led many projects at DGMS introducing solution for the linking or integrating information technology in the supply chain management. Warm welcome to our speaker today, pharmacist Hamad Mahrizi. I will hand over to him now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone. Thank you, Pharmacist Sara, for your kind introduction, and I would like to extend my gratitude to Oman Pharmaceutical Society for organizing such a successful webinar. I'm very delighted and honored to be here today and share some thoughts about demand and supply disruptions during pandemics, and also to shed some lights on action that has been taken by the DGMS in order to manage these disruptions. So we'll share the slides now. Okay. Well, I have tried to simplify this presentation as much as possible in order to make it more digestible for our audience. So during this presentation, I will start with supply chain definition. Then I will explain the differences between the supply chain strategies, and I will explore Okay, I hope I'm clear. Then this will lead us to our last part of presentation, which is disruption management. So to start with, I think I have some problem here. Okay. So repeat again, sorry for this. Okay, back again. So to start with, I will try to explain the relation between supply and demand. As you all are aware of, the demand doesn't equal supply by itself. Therefore, we need supply chain manager to maintain the equilibrium. However, what do we mean by supply and demand? Well, demand is an economic principle that is described as consumer desire or willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service, while supply is a fundamental economic concept that describes the total amount of specific good or service that is available for consumer. And this will lead us to the definition of supply chain management, where there were some pioneers like Foster's who really introduced the concept of interrelationship between separate company functions and between some companies and markets. And then in 1982, Oliver Weber defined the supply chain management as it covers the flow of goods from supplier through manufacturing distribution chains and to the end users. Thirdly, he explained the supply chain management in philosophy ways. So he says supply chain management is a philosophy focused on how firms utilize their supply process, technologies, information, and capability to enhance competitive advantage. Ballo, he defined the supply chain as encompass different activities, including the procurement, conversions, and logistics. And he said that in the essence of supply chain management integrates supply and demand management within across all companies. So to summarize all this, the definition of supply chain management, which is by Chopra and Mendel, is supply chain management engage the management of flows of finance, material, information flow between the among stages of supply chain, which is from the supply to the end user, in order to achieve or minimize the cost and to achieve competitive advantage. There are different strategies are used by different organizations, depend on their requirements, but there are two main strategies for supply chain management. Well, the first one is to be more efficient, and the second one is to be more responsive. So if the goal of your organization to be more efficient, you need to organize your supply demand at the lowest cost. If it is to be responsive, you need to respond quickly to the demand. In terms of manufacturing strategy, you need to lower the cost through high utilization of resources if you want to be efficient. And you have to maintain capacity flexibility to buffer against demand, supply, and uncertainty, such as pandemics. In terms of inventory strategy, you need to minimize inventory to lower cost if you want to be efficient, while if you want to be more responsive, you need to maintain buffer inventory again to deal with uncertainty of supply. In terms of lead time strategy, for efficiency, you need to reduce, but not at the expense of costs. But if you want to be responsive, you need to reduce aggressively, even if the costs are significant. In terms of selecting the suppliers, to be more efficient, you need to select based on cost and quality. While if you want to be responsive, you need to select based on speed, flexibility, reliability, and quality. These are the two main strategies that are used by most organizations. However, you can combine it and become more lean, agile, if you want to be more responsive and efficient at the same time. And this will lead us to the supply chain disruptions. Well, I have mentioned before in definition section that supply chain management is mainly about managing the flows, material, information, and finance. Furthermore, the global value chain is functioning by breaking the production or the supply into activities and tasks carried out in different countries through different tiers. And remember, your supply chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So any disruption occur at any level or tiers, it will affect directly the whole supply chain. And there is different type of disruptions that can occur, such as it could be natural disaster like storms or earthquakes, or it can be due to transportation failure or delays, or it can be due to business or economic issues like prices fluctuations, or merging the companies, like we've seen a lot of this in pharmaceutical companies, or increasing in demand, such as like in pandemics and crisis. However, 40% of the drug shortage contributed to the quality problems and recalls of most of the pharmaceutical products. So we need to be very careful when we select the item and select manufacturer and validate manufacturers. The last one is the pandemics, like such as we are facing now, which is coronavirus pandemic, although it's not as much as big as the Spanish flu, which killed around 40 million of population, yet the COVID-19 has taken the world by storm, and it has unprecedented health and socio-economic implication. For instance, it affects badly the stocks. As can we see, have all a huge falling since the outbreak began on 31st December. The demand of oil has been decreased due to the lockdowns and decrease of the oil demand, decrease the oil prices. Government around the world have urged employees to work from home where it's possible. Therefore, shares of technologies companies such as Zoom and Netflix and Amazon have shot up and increased dramatically. Government around the world have introduced travel restriction to try to contain the viruses, which is affect the travel industry badly, and it damaged it badly. As we can see, the decrease of number of daily flights less than 50,000 in day. Restrictions and lockdown because people could not go to work. So that's why many manufacturers in China stopped working during January till March, which has affected the global supply chain. Looking at the coronavirus risk matrix that was published by The Economist, we can observe that the supply chain disruption is falling under high impact and high risk category. Therefore, it requires imperative risk mitigation plan that can resolve short and long-term supply disruption impact. And this leads us to the next topic, which is supply chain disruption management. Well, here we'll try to illustrate 10 actions that has been taken by DGMS in order to mitigate short-term risk during COVID-19 pandemic supply disruption. The first one is to create crisis war room. Well, one of the critical success factors for managing any risk and crisis is to set up what is known by war room or command center. This is required to gather all key functions under one leadership in one room and share decision-making process with them. From the early stages of pandemic, DGMS has set up a war room under the leadership of Pharmaceutical and membership of all directors and assistant directors of DGMS, where we meet on a daily basis and share all the updated information and take the necessary decisions when it's required. Hence, this type of room facilitates better receive and evaluate incoming information and allow it to respond effectively. The second step is to protect your employees. Well, during the pandemics, it is very crucial to protect the employees and to make sure that they are safe, especially if they are medical staff. Building and strengthening human resources capacity was one of the main focus of DGMS management and the leadership of Pharmaceutical. Therefore, we at DGMS will believe that the employees are the asset of our organization and they are the essence of outstanding outcomes. Hence, protecting them was the first priority of our management. Consequently, many changes was imposed in the way of performing our daily work, such as working from distance, working in shift, wearing PPE when needed, and etc. And here I would like to quote Richard Branson's phrase where he said that take care of your employees and they will take care of your business. The third action is understanding the customer needs. Understanding your customer actual needs is the key of sourcing the precise need, and it helps in saving a lot of money and time. And this can be achieved by sharing accurate information at real time. It is very challenging to estimate the accurate needs of customers during pandemics because it's fluctuating from day to another. At the beginning of the pandemic, we at DGMS, we have faced a challenge in understanding the final needs of our end users, given that COVID-19 is still considered as a new infectious disease and no medication was approved for it. However, once the national guideline was developed, it revealed the requirements and it enabled us to estimate and forecast the real requirements. Therefore, defining the needs is very crucial for the reacting fast and taking the right decision. On the other hand, unfortunately, we did not have the full vision of supply chain at the downstream. Therefore, we relied on medical store in charge at the level of health units to share with us precise stock levels when they send their demand, Hence, we created a special form with a special code for COVID-19 requisition items that helped us to track the inventory and to take the right decision at the right time. The fourth step is to assess the value chain inventory. For accurate forecasting, it is very important to evaluate the inventory along the supply chain upstream and downstream in order to make use of all available resources and redistribute the inventory in a rational way. The fifth step is to map your supply chain, analyze the risk. Mapping the supply chain provides the visuality of all bottlenecks and risks. It helps you to understand the difficulties and to respond proactively. Plus, it assists in finding the appropriate alternative supply in case of any types of disruption occurred. And here where our Department of Specification and Supplies played a big role during this pandemic. The extensive experience and training of department staff has paid off as they were up to the challenge and they could cope with the pressure and they were capable of analyzing the risk and utilizing the long-term good relationship with the suppliers to outsource all our requirements on time. And literally, I would like to say that they were working around the clock under supervision and guidance of our DG in order to take decisions and finalize offers before it was taken or overdrawn by another buyer. The sixth step was to manage the cash flow. Supply chain management is not about managing the material and information flow only, but it's also about managing the flow of the finance as well. The importance of the cash flow in supply chain, it is similar to the importance of the blood flow in the human body. Without it, everything dries out and dies. During the pandemics, the prices of the medical supplies are fluctuating on a daily basis, depends on the demand and regulation imposed, the regulation that imposed. For instance, the prices of medical masks that we are facing right now. Therefore, it is very important to estimate your requirements accurately and plan and manage your budget accordingly. The seventh step was to enhance import material visibility. During pandemic, delays are expected. Therefore, it is crucial to know your supply status in order to respond proactively when we had contacted all our suppliers, asking them to expedite their deliveries and to update us in case of any unexpected delays, which allow us to act fast and find alternative sources. So always keep your eyes on inbound materials. The eighth step, which is secure the logistic capacity. Securing the logistic capacity might be one of the big challenges during the pandemic due to the many countries locked down. However, with coordination and support from Center of Emergency Management of Minister of Health, we were successful in securing more than 20 flights for medical supplies. Moreover, DGMS supply chain section worked effectively and professionally during this crisis and provided the required logistic capacity, which helped us a lot in supplying the right items at the right location and the right time. The ninth step was to update inventory policy to suit the new trend of demand and requirements and to cope with the patient needs. For instance, medication was dispensing for 1 month only, but during the pandemic, we have changed the policy to allow to issue 2 months stock for the patient in order to reduce the patient visits to the health units. 10th and last, as any plan or any strategy, you need a continuous improvement for all. So you need to plan and do and recheck, try to recheck and revisit your policy and your regulations in order to update it according to the changes. So this was the main 10 steps that was taken by DGMS to manage the short-term effect. However, COVID-19 pandemic is a wake-up call for the supply chain managers. So there is long-term, we're going to face long-term impacts, disruption that we're going to face after the pandemic. Here, I'm suggesting the 7 steps to manage long-term COVID-19 supply chain disruptions. The first one is to focus on resilient supply chain. The resilience is the ability to be prepared for unexpected risk events and to respond and recover quickly. So we need to learn from this kind of crisis and analyze the gaps and try to improve in order to build more flexible and agile supply chain. The second one is to map supply chain. You need to map to have the visuality of all your suppliers from tier 1 and tier 2. And if you're going to use artificial intelligence that can help to alert you before the crisis happen and disruption happen, it will be more effective. The third one is update supply performance evaluation. You need to change your supply evaluation to evaluating based on the resilience, based on reliability and agility, and more than just lead time, more than just price and quality. Fourth one is to enhance the real-time information sharing. It's crucial to have real-time sharing that can help you to take decisions at the right time. And the fifth one is to bring supply chain home. Many countries are going to try after this pandemic to bring the supply chain home, either by building hubs or building manufacturers, or to make it as near as possible to their country in order to reduce the lead time. The sixth one is avoid of bullwhip effect, where the whole global right now is in panic and everyone is exaggerating their demand. So expecting after this pandemic there will be a lot of buildup of inventories. You need to avoid this bullwhip effect, which is exaggerating the demands along the supply chain. So to do this, you need to be near to the customers and have real data and real information in order to estimate the real requirements. The last one is to invest of Industrial revolution technology, where fortunately new supply chain technologies are emerging that dramatically improve visibility across the end-to-end supply chain. We need to invest this and to learn more. We can use the drones for this one, we can use automation, or we can use even intelligent information for this. So this was the 7 steps that can be taken to improve the supply chain and to manage the disruptions after the pandemic. Finally, I would like to thank all DGMS staff for their outstanding performance and hard working behind the scenes during this pandemic under the leadership of Pharmacist Sara. And I would like to extend my gratitude to all our colleagues in health institutions for their professionals and extraordinary efforts and outstanding performance. It is a difficult time for everyone, but remember, hard times don't create heroes. It is during the hard times when the hero within us is revealed. Hence, it's your time to shine. So stay focused, stay strong, and stay safe. Thank you so much. I'm back to Pharmacist Sara right now.
Thank you very much, Pharmacist Hamad, for the wonderful presentation, which show us how supply chain is managed effectively during pandemics. And indeed, you are one of the competitive advantages of the Director General of Medical Supplies, and we are very proud of you. As we saw from the presentation, it's not an easy job to put all the information, the cash and the materials in one flow and run it smoothly and effectively. And an effective supply chain, an agile one, is the backbone of any health system, and to smooth the functioning at the health units and deliver all the materials in a right way, in the right condition. And communication is very important. And DGMS played a very important role in communicating all the tiers of the supply chain, from the manufacturer till the staff and the end user and all the stakeholders here. Now I go back to Pharmacist Hamad to answer the selected question, whatever question he need to answer within the limit of the time. Back to you, Pharmacist Hamad.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pharmacist Sara. Yeah, there is very interesting questions here. I will select some of them. Well, the first one is says that since pandemic are expected in future, is there a protocol or the action plan to be released to prepare us for future pandemics? Well, there already are available emergency plan at DGMS and even in the ministry. But COVID-19, as I said, COVID-19 was exceptional. It took the world by storm, as I mentioned before, and that's it, and I believe that it is a learning process right now. So yes, there is a contingency plan, there is a risk management plan, but it needs to be updated and learn from this situation to be more effective. I've got the second question. How do you estimate the actual need of items during the crisis? Well, estimation of actual items, as I mentioned before, it depends on information sharing and depends on real data sharing. So if you have a really good IT infrastructure, they're going to give you information real time. So it will be your life easier. Otherwise, you need to rely on the other part, or downstream, or even upstream to have more visibility for it. So if you don't have good IT, you need to invest on IT and in sharing information for this. We'll go for another question. This one. How we can control and maintain demand and supply respectively? Well, it depends on your strategy. First of all, it depends on the situation, it depends on your strategy, and it depends how big is supply chain, your supply chain. If it is your the more supply chain, expanded supply chain, the more difficult it's going to be for maintaining the demand and supply respectively. Well, you cannot control both of them sometimes. Maybe you're going to control the demand, or you cannot control the supply, or maybe the other side, you can control the supply, you cannot control the demand. So you need to evaluate the supply chain strategy and how it works to do this. for the last question. Do you think the lack, okay, do you think the lack of the availability of local manufacturing of medical and surgical items has an influence on distribution or supply? Well, if we talk about the crisis, yes, it has a big impact. As I mentioned in my presentation, most of the country are going to think to bring the supply chain home. So the closest the supply chain, the closest manufacturer you're going to have, it's going to be the shorter lead time and the more visibility that you're going to have. So yes, if you're going to have more local manufacture, you have more control, more visibility, and trustful supply. Do you have a time for another question, Sara?
Yeah, we can take one more question.
Okay. Okay, this one. Let me see this one. Do you face any shortage now? In which medications? Well, the shortage is available all the time. You cannot reach 100% of supply or fulfill demands since you don't manufacture everything locally and you have everything locally. So there is, it's always there. And which medication? Well, it's not, I cannot reveal it here, which medication, but I think that it is there is a shortage in medication. Sometimes it happens. And also there is a shortage in surgical supplies, as I mentioned, for different reasons in my presentation. Thank you so much, and back to you, Sara.
Thank you very much, Hamad, for answering the question. And thank you very much, all of you, for joining us for this webinar. For following and watching for the next upcoming webinars from the Oman Pharmaceutical Society, please follow and keep updated information and staying on contact with the social media of the Pharmaceutical Society. And thank you very much. And I'll end from here. Thank you very much for all of you.
Bye.